Hello, everybody. To all our fans in and out of the studio, I want to acknowledge that. Really pleased today that we have one of the top female runners in the United States and probably the world.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, she said something and
she's modest.
She's modest. And so on my left is
Meghan Arbogast.
everybody hear that? Meghan Arbogast. And of course, next to her is my friend and running partner and person I ask questions to and helps me out is
Tony.
good. So Meghan is resting the moment for Saturday's run at the Western States 100. Now, most of you may know what the Western States 100 is, but before we get into that, there's a quote that I want to start the show with. And remember, this show has to deal with mental toughness, people that are mentally tough. And Meghan fits that bill completely. But the quote that I want to start with, and Meghan, if you'll share with our viewers what this quote means to you. I learn by going where I have to go. That's by Theodore Rothke. I learn by going where I have to go.
I guess that every time I go anywhere, I learn something. In every race I run, I'll make mistakes and learn from them. Or every day when I get up in the morning, I go through the day, I'll make mistakes and I learn from them. So every day is a journey and every day you learn something new.
Okay. And what did you learn today?
I learned today that sometimes you think you're all ready for altitude, and then you go outside and you start hiking up to Immigrant Pass and you get a little headache. Oh, I thought I was ready for the altitude. So I guess that's what I've learned so far.
Does that mean you're ready or not ready?
It means I think I'm kind of where I should be, in that I'm not going to be cocky about anything or overconfident about anything. You know, you feel like I did all the training that I wanted to. I got the heat. I went to Flagstaff and Tahoe and ran at altitude and felt pretty comfortable, and had some really great training runs down here on the course. So I was, feeling like, yeah, this is going to be my year. And today I don't feel that great. So it's good to okay, well, just keep everything in check and get back to what really works, which is to just keep your mind on what you know you can do. Find your rhythm and don't get out of that rhythm. So it was a good little check.
Okay. So you're saying that perhaps you were overconfident?
Overcomfortable, I think.
Explain that.
I don't think I'm ever overconfident.
Okay.
But I can feel a little too comfortable in how things have gone and maybe ignore little signs that there are things I should pay attention to. So it makes me more on top of my game if things aren't 100% perfect.
So the altitude gave you some clue.
I just felt like, oh, it is a little high here, and I do have a little headache, so okay, it's not going to be like just because you trained at altitude, it's going to be a piece of cake to run in the high country. I typically do not feel well in the high country.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of uncomfortable. I feel kind of like it's a struggle, and I'm gasping a lot. And one other year in 2011.
She's human.
Yeah.
She's human.
Sounds good to hear.
She's human. We weren't sure.
Oh, weird. But in 2011, I went to Flagstaff for about a week and had spent it was right after Memorial Day, so I spent the weekend doing the Memorial Day training runs. And then I went to Yosemite, and I just wanted a couple weeks of being high and in the heat and running. And that was the only year that when I got into the high country, I actually felt comfortable in that I didn't feel like I need to get out of this.
You spent a couple of weeks, though, up in the hike.
Well, it
before.
was probably got up to about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, so my hope is that I will be comfortable when I'm up there, but I'm going to not be like, oh, throwing the towel because this is really hard, or I'm really uncomfortable.
Do you always find you'll start out not feeling comfortable? Do you always find that changes after the race starts?
It changes after Robinson Flat.
After
You start coming down out of the 6,000, 7,000 feet territory, then.
Can you give a little description prior to Robinson Flat for those viewers who may not quite understand
sure.
or grasp the significance of this?
So we start at Squaw Valley, and that's around 6,000 feet, which is already fairly high for those of us who live at sea level, which is where I live. And in the first 3.5 to 4 miles, we get up to over 8,000 feet, almost 9,000 feet. And it's a real steep climb, so it's not perhaps as noticeable as much as that you're climbing a lot, and that's a lot of work. And then for the next, probably all the way to Duncan Canyon, or Duncan Aid Station is another 18 miles or so. And that's a lot of just high altitude running along ridges, the Red Star Ridge and Lion Ridge. There's not a bunch of huge climbs, but there's continuous steady running at 6,000 and 7,000 feet. And it's kind of loose gravel, and it can be taxing. And then when you get to mile 23, Duncan Canyon Aid Station, there's the first kind of significant canyon, so you get a little respite downhill, but then you still come back up to Robinson Flat, and that's 6,000 feet again. So.
And then from there?
From there, there's a small climb out of Robinson Flat, and then we start a lot of descent down to, well, we go through Miller's Defeat and then Dusty Corners, so that's a nice long downhill. Then there's a bit of flat through Last Chance, and then we hit El Dorado Canyon. Well, no, the first canyon's not El Dorado.
Deep Canyon.
Deep Canyon, and then El Dorado Canyon. Right. So each canyon you're descending a lot. You have to climb back out, descend, climb, but there's more descending than climbing. And that's kind of all the way down to river crossing. It's a lot of descending. And then from the river crossing, the last 22 miles is more rolling. But you're pretty tired by then.
Sorry?
You're pretty tired by then.
You get tired?
I do.
Well, we were reading a little thing that you wrote up about your ideal run to run to, and how Frank really loved, because we're always talking about you have to be happy going uphill, and so you said climbing Devil's Thumb was fun.
Do you remember saying that?
I have had one race where it was fun.
Really?
And then I had one training run this spring where it was fun, and that was
Explain
exciting.
what fun is to you then.
Fun climbing Devil's Thumb happens when you actually have strong feeling legs, and they feel springy, and you're pretty fit. You're not fatigued before you start climbing it, and you feel like you can, I don't want to say attack it, but you can meet it as it comes to you, and you can handle it.
Are you running up there?
No. I'll hike, and then when we get into the switchbacks, the few switchbacks toward the top that are a little flat, I'll jog those, and more than anything, I do it just to kind of shake my legs out, give them something a little different to do. It's not like I'm going fast. It's just a change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So feeling strong.
Yes.
Going into.
Like it's not defeating you.
That's fun.
That's fun to me.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's fun. Really fun, though, is running down into El Dorado Canyon. That's super
So you
fun.
run the downs well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There's something that I read that you have a master's degree,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yep.
Was that from Oregon State?
Yes, it was.
In botany and plant pathology?
That's true.
Could you explain that to me? Why?
Why? Well, it's not a very usual answer. When I was a kid, this is a long story, I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Oh, you did?
And I grew
At
up-
what age?
I don't remember when I started wanting to be a vet, but
Okay.
it was my kid dream. And I went to Oregon State to do pre-vet, and I actually got into vet school, and I went for a year, but I wasn't the kid anymore, and I wasn't really sure it's what I wanted to do anymore.
How old are you at this point?
22?
Still a kid.
Still a kid.
Still a kid.
Still a kid. But I wasn't convinced anymore, and I actually quit. And then I was kind of in limbo. But at that time, I started a family. I was married, and I had a daughter. So that was my priority. And it was.
So you were in vet school when you got married, or just
I
after?
did get married in vet school.
You got married in vet
Yeah,
school.
Uh-huh.
And what was his name?
Brian.
Brian. So
Yeah.
was Brian in vet school also? Or?
No, he was working at the university in chemistry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, except I knew I wanted to have a family. So I decided, well, that's one thing I know I want to do. I'm going to have a family. So,
what's your daughter's name?
Ruby.
Say,
Ruby.
Ruby. Okay. All right. So you got married young,
Mm-hmm.
had a child young,
Yeah.
and so then you said, okay, I'm not going to be a vet. I want to be a mom.
Want to be a mom? Yeah.
So that's a dramatic change. From,
Well, I've always wanted to be a mom. The vet was the job. The mom was the passion. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, being married
Mhm.
and having a child,
Yeah.
what was your life like at that particular point? 'Cause are you still in Corvallis? at
Still in
this point?
Corvallis. I worked part-time in a
Doing-
plant pathology lab
Okay.
in the university as basically a lab technician. And we had a lab that studied diseases of potatoes and how to control different diseases using both agricultural techniques or like plant management versus trying to get away from using a lot of pesticides. I haven't been in the field for a long time. I'm forgetting all the lingo, but
But if you went into a store, you could pick out a healthy potato.
I could pick out a healthy potato, yeah.
Okay, so that's
Isn't that hard?
well, okay. So your master's degree didn't contribute to that.
No.
No.
Were you running, still running yet, or-
I started running most consistently after I had my daughter because I've always been active and in sports or growing up on a farm. I was just always busy and was not one to sit around and watch TV or pick
So,
up a sort of sit-down
so
activity.
going back just before that, so where were you born?
I was born in Santa Ana.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? On a farm?
No, we moved to Oregon when I was 5 in a very rural farm and logging community right up the I-5 corridor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of sports or activities were you doing growing up in elementary school? And so forth?
The first available sport for us was volleyball and track in 7th grade. That's as soon as we could start.
Another
Yeah,
last
Craig
week,
did the
Craig-
same thing. Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
were talking to Craig. Yeah, he's seventh grade.
grade
He was,
track
Well, we didn't have any sports before that.
in elementary school?
No.
You had PE?
Mhm.
Well, you did something.
Well, PE, I don't know, we played dodgeball and,
Okay.
relays and baseball outside, soccer, but nothing for very long, nothing very skilled. It was just outside activity. And so when you get in 7th grade, you had the opportunity for girls, you could play volleyball, boys could play flag football, boys could play basketball, but we didn't have basketball yet.
You couldn't play. So you were
This
only
was before
limited.
Title IX.
You were only limited to 2 sports.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so track was the other one, and I went out for everything.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I went out for all sports, all music, all everything, any activity I signed up.
So you play an instrument?
Mhm.
What do you play?
Flute.
Flute. Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Still?
Oh, I can. I haven't played it for a while, but I do have one.
Is this like the master's degree that you're not using?
I suppose. I would like to pick up my flute, and I look at it a lot. I should get that out. And then it sits there.
Okay. So what kind of track, seventh grade track, did you do?
The hurdles.
The hurdles.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Unlike Craig, I didn't really have anybody to race, so I didn't come in dead last in the hurdles.
Was there anybody else?
There were a couple others. I was okay.
These are against girls?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I like to jump over things. I was just.
You do?
Yeah.
So you must do great on the trail.
I love the trails. I love the technical stuff.
There's stuff to jump over.
Like us,
Yeah.
you can't jump over anything.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Wow.
Jumping
Okay.
over streams.
So you hurdles. Any other thing that you were doing in the seventh grade track?
Boy. Oh, long jump. Was not very good at that. But again, it was fun. I didn't have to be good to enjoy myself.
Okay. Were you good in volleyball?
Yeah, I was a good volleyball player. I played through high school and I played 1 year in college.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
I stopped because I wasn't being a very good student. So I decided to focus on my studies. And I stayed fit, though. I also, I would just go to the gym, you know, take aerobics classes or play racquetball or something. But
So what did you weigh back then?
oh, well, I did a lot of yo-yoing as a young woman. I went to college and did my first semester. I gained 20 pounds. You know, what they call the freshman 10. I doubled that. That was awesome. But I wasn't going to be that person because I wasn't comfortable with that. So I got fit.
You remember what your weight roughly was?
I think it was close to 150 pounds.
And now?
Now I'm about 115.
So you talk about fit being in college.
Yeah, I'm more
Yeah.
fit than I was in college.
You're more fit than...
Well, I take better care of myself too. I eat better, and
What do you eat? What kind of eating? I mean,
I like to think it mostly as kind of how I grew up with a lot of unprocessed food. We ate off the farm,
Okay.
so fruits and vegetables. We raised our own meat, eggs. We bought bread, and I mean we did have canned food around, but we also preserved a lot of our own. So how I eat now is I rarely buy a can of anything. Or any pre-packaged meals. I like to just go to the produce section unless, during the summer I grow almost everything I eat that's not alive, not a mammal or, you know,
Yeah.
not an animal product. I don't grow chickens yet, but I plan to do that. But all my vegetables and fruits I grow for the summer into the fall, and then I preserve a lot of them and try to like make it through the winter on a
Okay.
lot of stuff that I've
Okay.
grown.
Okay.
I just, I find it really grounding and satisfying to be able to do that. Just
To prepare your own foods?
to grow it,
grow your own.
To grow it?
to grow it, have my hands in the dirt, have that be produced right there, and
So
that's
you have
powerful.
you have a farm? And,
I have a backyard that's full of raised beds.
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were up at Squaw this morning and undergoing medical evaluation. What's going on? What's going up there?
Today, there was the annual flag raising ceremony up at Immigrant Pass, and that was conducted by Mo Livermore and Jerry Rossman, the members of the board. And people are encouraged to either hike all the way up, or you can take the tram up and walk the rest of the way. And we sing America the Beautiful, 2 verses. So the words in front of us for the second verse that no one knows.
Did you bring your flute?
I did not bring my flute.
Okay.
It's a good idea, though, maybe. And then there's time of reflection on people who were part of the Western States family who have passed in the last year. And Tony and Mo talk about them. And then if anyone else has anything to share about someone who's lost, they ask how far people have come, what other countries people have come from, and take a big group picture and run down the hill.
Okay.
So that was today. Tonight there's a veterans panel, and apparently Ann Trayson's going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, which is very exciting. Very
Okay.
good.
You've had some difficult times in your life. Could you tell us when that started and talk a little bit about what you went through?
Yeah, let's see, in 2006, my husband was having difficulty picking things up off the ground, or losing his balance, or he'd run into the wall, and after a while it became like something consistently going on, and so we went to a neurologist and did some tests, and it looked like it could have been a stroke, which would have been pretty unusual because he was very active, very healthy. And
Is he your age?
no, he's older. He was 16 years older than me, so he was 61 when this occured. And so
I'm pointing at Tony.
61.
He's
that's
60.
Yeah. So they did a EKG in case it was he did have a slight murmur, so they wanted to see if maybe, well, he might have thrown a clot and he had a tiny stroke. Did an MRI, and they called us back that day, and he had a very large meningioma, which is a tumor of the meninges of the brain. So it's not brain tissue or in general, but it's the covering of the brain. And it's, the neurologist said, when you have a brain tumor, this is the one you want to have.
Oh.
Because they're almost always benign. It's not brain tissue. People usually recover pretty well. Or we take it out. It might grow back, but because it's so big, it's probably been there a long time, taken a very long time to grow. If it grew fast, he'd be dead because it would have had a much bigger impact. So they did a surgery, took it out, and it was like the size of my fist.
Wow.
And, you know, there's no place for it to go except into the brain.
So it's pressing on the brain, yeah.
Yeah, so they took it out. He recovered great. They wanted him to come back in a year, well, 3 months for an MRI just to see how things were. And came back 3 months. There was no sign of. They couldn't take everything out. There was a piece attached to the sagittal vein in the brain, and if you nick that in surgery, you'll just bleed out. You don't touch that part of the brain. So then they wanted him to come back in a year, and just before the year was up, he started having symptoms again. So we kind of knew it wasn't going to be good. And so we went back in, and he had...
They're the same symptoms?
Yeah, a little bit of seizures, though. A little bit of like a limb seizure, not a full body seizure, but a limb. His arm would just start shaking without him being able to do anything. So went back in, and he had 3 tumors where there was 1 before and 2 that were located further away. So I said, okay, let's do surgery again. They took him down to San Francisco with a really great surgeon and took those out, left the 2 small ones, said, you're going to have to come back to get those. And another doctor said, oh, you should try radiation. So we went down the road of kind of everything. He had gamma knife surgeries, which are radiation that it's stereotactic. It's very focused beams of radiation, very high levels of radiation, but they can focus right on the
spot.
Right on the tumor, and they can draw circles around it. And they did that twice, but things just kept coming back. And the thought was that this group of cells had like fingers to it. So if you can imagine a big sheet of skin, there's where the meningioma was the first time, was just one end of one finger, where these cells that were going crazy were actually streaming away from there. It's an interesting and pretty horrible thing to watch someone go through any kind of cancer because it's a race, and you win or you don't, and it's weird to see. It's like, why can't you just take it out?
Yeah.
But after a while, the body just can't take that anymore. He had one last surgery in 2010 because it was growing again, and they were trying an experimental drug that it just wasn't fast enough. They did surgery one more time, but he had a stroke because he had so much going on in the brain, and it was really pretty horrible after that. And it's it's a hindsight. When do you decide you're not going to do anything? I think he would have preferred that he didn't have the last surgery, but it's the last thing you can do. But after the stroke, he was dying for 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was not like he was living at all. So that was
What was that like for you?
It was horrible. It was quite frankly horrible. I had 4 years to process the whole thing, and I had my moments of mourning all the way through it.
From 206 on?
Yeah, actually from 207, because after 206, and it was like, oh, he's going to recover, and he's going to be okay.
Oh, okay.
But 207, when it came back, was when that was a shock. That was hard.
So you weren't prepared for that then?
Not really.
Not really,
Not
okay.
really. And then, I don't know, you hear about animals that tend to know when somebody's sick or dying. There's some behavior, I don't know if they sit with them more, or it's like they sense. And I remember having that sense with him about 3 months before that last surgery. We'd gone to watch a basketball game at the university.
Were you able to talk about it with him?
We kept it like it was going to be okay. I mean, he made plans so that his all his life insurance and his retirement, everything was going to be in order. He wanted to make sure our daughter was taken care of. But I'm such a positive person. I want to shine my light on the possibility, because we all die sometime, and I'm just going to shine our light on the possibility that all these trips to LA or this is going to work. But at some moment I knew it wasn't, and that was a really strange sensation. I just thought, he's not going to be here next year. That was very weird. And 6 months later, he died.
6 months later.
Yeah.
Were you running during this time?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And that's something that I would expect him to do for himself if the role was reversed. And I know he wanted me to keep running. And, when someone's dying, at least the people I know and love, that's the last thing they would want you to do is sit around and wring your hands and
Well, they don't want you
not
to suffer.
They don't want. They want you to live.
Right,
They want you to
continue.
go out there and live and come back and tell me about it. So I went to races, and I mean, he was bedridden. I had to have people come take care of him. I was taking care of him till I couldn't, because he physically could not get out of bed, and I put him in a nursing home, and then I could sleep, and I would go and visit him every day. But I know that's exactly what he would have wanted, was for everyone around him to keep living. And as long as he could understand us when we came to see him, he liked to know what your run was, and how did you do. And I would hope that if I'm ever in that situation, that people around me will keep living.
Well, it's real clear that you're an outstanding runner. I mean, that's a given. When did that realization come to you? Was it during this period of
It's funny. I still don't think I'm an outstanding runner.
Well, we do.
But
I
that's,
know.
We do.
But that's a good attitude to have,
Well,
because
it's-
that means you'll always try to improve.
Yes, yes, there's always room for improvement, and I credit my genetic makeup, you know, I picked my parents well. I'm a student of anything I take on, and running is easy for me. And I think we tend to gravitate towards things that are kind of easier for us. You know, I'm not going to go out and learn how to play I mean, I know how to play basketball, but that was in the 80s when people were smaller and not so mean. And I don't really want to learn how to play basketball against these big women that are, you know, pushing you around all the time. It's like, I don't want to get good at that. I want to get good at the stuff that feels good to me.
So you've known that you've been good as running or easy for a long time?
Yeah, it's always felt pretty natural.
Natural?
Yeah.
Just like Tony. Natural.
Who are you talking to?
Okay, so when did you realize that?
Well, I'm tenacious, so I've never sort of like blown one out of the house. Like, didn't like train for a marathon and go and try to do a 3:30 and run a 2:40 or something like that. I was more like, okay, I'm going to run my first marathon. I hope I can run around like 7:10 pace. And I was like 7:12 pace. So it wasn't like, yeah, she did a 7:0, 7-minute pace or something. I was always just, I set my goals about where if everything is perfect, I might reach it. That's how I like to set my goals. I don't want to set goals that I'm going to go out and run a 3:20 marathon when I can run a 3:10. I want to put that bar just where it's going to be really, really hard and really, really special to reach it.
So you're realistic with your expectations then. So what are your expectations for Saturday's run?
You know, I run well in the heat. I like the heat.
So you like this weather?
I love this weather.
Tony does too.
I did not like last year's weather. I
Too
didn't-
cold?
Too cold.
Too
Yeah, I get kind of shut down and don't move very well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's, I want to say, well, 18 hours would just be fantastic.
What would
It would
that-
be fantastic.
What would that per mile pace be?
I want to say, I dislike that question because I never know the answer. I don't know.
You don't know? Okay,
Because
that's interesting.
It's because it's so different all day long. You're going up, you're going down, you're going up.
But the average, if you did 18 hours.
You'd have to ask someone who knows those,
Okay.
all the paces for the
About
different, do you know?
What do you
9
think?
to 10, somewhere in there. That's my best guess.
Okay, I don't know. I know people ask me, I don't know.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm running,
We look- we-
12-minute pace, sometimes 15, sometimes 6:30s if it's
Yeah,
a sweet
well,
downhill.
and going up Devil's Thumb, you're
20
doing-
minutes?
Yeah, right.
20-minute miles uphill? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
we figured out your race in Japan, your 100K.
Oh,
in
100K,
Japan.
yeah, it
that
was,
that
what,
was interesting. We looked-
7:25?
7:30. Well, we came up with 7:34 average,
Okay.
something like that, but close enough.
Yeah.
It was fast. We were just marveling how you stayed so constant for 60.
Well,
miles.
we slowed
Consistent.
down, but it was not like all of a sudden you're barely moving. It was more just a gradual slow down as the day wore on. It's a long day. It's like Jed Smith with 2 more laps.
Yeah,
3 more laps.
that's got the laps. That's right. That's right.
This one didn't have laps. It was an out and back, but you could see forever.
All right. So you're thinking of 18 hours if things goes.
Yeah,
go
if I manage the heat. Even someone who loves to run in the heat, it's hot, and that's going to take some focus on all the tricks that you can manage to do and keep cool.
What are your tricks?
I will submerge in every possible stream, and there's not going to be that many, but in Duncan Canyon, just before Robinson Flat, that Duncan
Right.
Creek, you can get all the way into that, so I will submerge.
Totally.
Totally. Yeah. Anything to get the core cool, and anytime I feel my face get hot, it's time to douse it. So I will have one water bottle that has just water, and one that's got my electrolyte or a beverage. I will wear a hat, and I will wear a neckerchief that I will have wet all the time, and I will be able to put ice in it at aid stations, I'm going to put ice in my sports bra under my armpits. And I just thought of this. I don't know how it's going to work, but your femoral arteries and veins are a good place to cool. So I've been trying to think, how am I going to get ice to stay in there? You put ice and it just shoots right through.
Yeah, yeah.
So I am going to try. I'm going to pin a sock on each side. And I'm
Really?
going to put ice in
Really?
each sock. Yeah.
Really?
Anything. I'm like, I gotta take it seriously, not just, oh, I'll put ice in my bottles, which I will put ice in my bottles. And then I have my my hydration system is Ultraspire, the Anton pack. So it's got place to carry 2 bottles right here, so I can have my hands free. But the bottles are easier because you can fill them easily, and you can
Okay.
grab them easily, and you know what you're drinking. But with the bladder, it's a little more
It's a
tricky.
hassle to fill, yeah.
But the back of the pack does have a pocket, and so I will have ice put in that at the aid stations as well, just to cool my
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what other creeks? I'm Deep Canyon, the
Right.
North Fork of the North
Mhm, you can
Fork
get down
of
there.
the American River. I'll go down to that, take the time, and just because it's just before the Devil's Thumb, so to go down there and get completely cooled off before climbing should really help.
So that's smart.
Yeah, and it's a sort of a game of patience. It's like, oh wow, I'm on a race. I don't know if I have time to take 2 minutes. And when later in the race, oh, I wish I would have taken those 2 minutes because now I'm barely moving.
No,
Yeah.
that's smart. That's really
Yeah,
smart.
yeah. It's my 7th time here. I think. Hopefully, I'm
This is
getting
your
some-
7th
seventh
Western States?
Yeah.
So who's your female competition this year?
This year, Rory Basio. She's from Soda Springs. She was
Okay.
2nd last year, 4th the year before. She's great. She's young and really energetic, really fun, really good energy out there.
Okay.
Amy Sproston, who I ran in Japan with.
Okay.
Pam Smith, who's also from Oregon. Pam and Amy and I are on the 100K team for USA. Denise Barassa, also from Oregon. Nikki Kimball, who has won 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years. Eliza LaPierre was 3rd last year. Ashley Nordell, also from Oregon. Jen Benna, who's from Reno. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody.
So there's competition.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you think you'll wind up,
Where do I
or would like to wind up?
I like that. Oh, I'd like to win. Everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. I would like to win.
Okay.
I could see
Is
that
that
as
your
a.
expectation?
I expect that it's a possibility. I don't ever think I can win. I will win. I don't think I will win anything because I can't determine what anyone else does. If they're going to come and blow it out of the water, or if I'm going to blow it out of the water. But I feel comfortable with my fitness and my training and my course knowledge that I could win. I could win. Yeah. I feel like my age isn't a factor.
Terrific.
It
You're
isn't.
you're
It
running
hasn't
against all,
been.
I know,
all
it's
these
nuts.
all these young kids.
Yeah.
So-
But I have experience. Oh, the other one, Emily Harrison, is she's a.
See, that's cool. That you're older, and yet,
Experience really matters.
what's the course record for a woman? What's Ann? Is that Ann? Or?
No, Ellie Greenwood broke it
last
last
year.
year, 16:55.
Yes, yeah.
So just
somewhere around
Just
there.
under 17.
Under
Yeah, just
17.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So if you ran 18 hours in this heat, that would be something.
Yeah. For me, 18 hours at all would just be. I've run 18:50, and that was in one of the. So there was a little less. We were down one canyon. We didn't.
You went down the road, you went down.
We
Skid
went down the
Ridge
gravel road instead
gravel,
of. We
okay.
didn't go to Lions.
Lions Ridge.
Or went to Lions, and then we didn't go to Red Star. So we
Okay.
went on a gravel road over to the reservoir
Hmm.
and came up to Duncan. Yeah, I ran 18:50 that year. My goal, my time goal, I want to break Doug Latimer's age group record.
What is that?
It's 18:43. And he has got the 50 to 59 men's.
So you want to beat the men's
men's
record.
record. I have the women's record, so I want to beat the men's record.
You want it all.
I want it all.
So what's a normal training week for you? What do you do? What
I do.
Is there a normal?
is it?
Well, yeah, I know it's like a training month is probably
Okay.
easier because I usually race once a month, 50K or a 50-mile, and so there's a little bit of down and up around that. Otherwise, long runs of anywhere from 3 to 4.5 hours, and I'll do speed work. So either go to the track or do a fartlek run.
Spell out the speed work.
Sometimes it's mile repeats, 4 or 5 or 6 mile repeats.
At what
Um,
do you shoot for?
Probably around, if I'm doing just mile repeats, I'll try to hit 6s. If I'm doing 2 miles, I'll, go for 6:15s or 6:10 to 6:15. Or if it's a tempo run, anywhere from 6:30 to 6:45, I'll be okay with.
Explain to the audience what or the viewers what tempo and.
A tempo run would be just a sustained effort that's much harder than just an easy run, where you're trying to maintain a pretty high heart rate, but just below the level where you start feeling your legs burn, and you want to maintain it for, 3, 4, 5 miles, 10 miles, depending on how much training you've done. It's a pretty hard workout, but it's pretty satisfying too. So then I'll do the speed work and then maybe hill repeats in the same week, and then a long run. Those are sort of the bread and butter
How long
workouts.
are your hill repeats?
It's usually 60 to 90 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's supposed to be like 6 to 10% grade, which I'm not always sure
Well,
what
yeah,
that
what
is.
it
But
is,
it's like
yeah.
it's not going to be like this. Something that I can actually run and
Okay.
run with some speed versus something where I just get so trudgy because it's too steep. Yeah, but that's good for strength and form.
Any cross training?
Just gardening.
Gardening?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done yoga, and I was thinking I should do yoga. I should do yoga.
See, I do weed eating. I call it cross training. He laughs
Oh,
at me.
you use a machine,
Yeah.
right?
Well, okay.
Doesn't count. I use a shovel.
Shovel.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's the
Tom.
difference.
That's the
Okay. I'll
difference.
have to-
Forget the machines. Forget the machines. You mentioned your parents in terms of genetics for your parents. Tell us about your parents.
My dad grew up in Southern California, and he's not a big man. He's not much bigger than I am, but he played football in college
Okay.
at Friends University in Wichita. He was a wide end receiver or something where you don't get too beat up. But he did get his knees
Yeah,
wrecked.
your receivers, you're supposed to run away from contact.
Yeah, he didn't always do that.
So you
He-
take after him in that way.
Yeah, I think so. Well, my mom played field hockey. She loved field hockey, and she played softball.
Okay.
She loved both of those, and she's really competitive.
And you're not?
I am competitive.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
competitive.
Okay.
But she has a more competitive personality.
And you?
Yeah, my personality is not very competitive. I'm competitive in sports, but I don't have a competitive personality.
Well, talk about your mom. Let's hear about her.
She's just kind of hard driving and one-ups people, and hope she doesn't watch this.
We'll send her a copy.
It's okay. I love my mom. She's a strong woman.
Well, we're not saying, we're just
Yeah,
describing
right.
her. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
She had to, overcome her generation of what was expected of women. Her dad wanted her basically to become a secretary, and my mom wanted to become a doctor, and she didn't, but she did fight hard to get the education she wanted.
She went to college.
She went to college, but she wanted to go to Kansas State. My grandpa said, no, you have to go to Friends University. And
So she's from Kansas?
she's from Wichita, yeah.
Wichita, okay.
My dad he grew up as a Quaker and went to that
Okay.
Friends University. So that's where they met, and she was just determined to get an education that was more than, she's just a sponge. She got her degree in biology, then my dad and she moved to Southern California.
So you're like your mom in that way too.
Well, my dad's the same. He wants to pursue an education and a good life.
But did he go into the sciences?
He went into social sciences and became a teacher.
That's different.
Well,
Hard science.
it's, yeah. I don't know. I still identify with my dad.
Oh, you do?
I do.
What?
Personality-wise.
He's more laid back?
Yeah, yeah. I actually had wanted to be a teacher and wanted to coach. And my mom was like, no, you need to go to vet school. And so I was more of the, yeah, okay. And that was part of the quitting too, was am I doing this for me? Am I doing this because my mom wants me to do it?
So how did your mom feel when you left vet
Oh,
school?
she was very distraught for a while. And
How did she express that to you?
oh, you're making a big mistake. She was crying. I mean, it was really horrible.
Oh, she
Yeah,
was?
it was pretty horrible.
Wow.
So she took it personally, you know, and it wasn't about her. It was me making a decision.
Are
So
you the only girl?
Only girl. I have 2 older brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
it's
you're
all-
the youngest?
Mhm.
Okay.
Are they active too? Are they?
Not so much. They're not inactive. My oldest brother, he swims and he has a pool. He lives in Southern California. They're both physical. You know, they just we're not a sit-down family. We just kind of
No machines, Tony.
No machines.
No machines.
But they don't compete at a regular
No, but
time.
they love my running.
They love
They're
your
like,
running,
They're
okay.
ready. They're ready at the computer for this weekend's race.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I want to hear more about that relationship with you and your mom.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, she was pretty much, I was like her domain, and the boys were my dad's domain. I think that's probably not too unusual. But when they moved to California, I was born there, but she was already going to graduate school, and this was in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. She had
So
made,
she's smart too then.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's bright. She's very bright. But she had 3 small children, and she was going to graduate school in the late 50s, early 60s, and she would talk about, you know, holding me on her lap while she's studying, and she's got these 2 boys going all over the place. My dad's working, teaching, and they didn't have much money, but she just has always been ambitious about an education. She wanted to get her PhD, and she tried, didn't get it, but she worked in, actually, this is funny, but she worked in plant pathology until she was in her 70s. So how I ended up in plant pathology was I was at Oregon State taking classes, and I needed a part-time job. And she was in plant pathology, so she knew all the labs that needed someone to wash glassware.
She's at Corvallis too?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she said, oh, this lab needs a 10-hour a week worker who's not a student or a work study student, because a lot of work study students aren't very reliable.
Okay.
They're willing to pay the money,
Right.
all of it, because if it's a work study, the government pays part of it, and a lot of times this falls through. The students don't come. So I started working in this lab, and I loved it. I just loved doing, you know, research and sciencey things and pouring media plates and going out in the field. I loved that, all the field work we did. We'd go out to Central Oregon, out to potato fields, and bring back parts of potatoes and bring it back to the lab. And
And you like, what about that you like?
I like to process things. I like to do stuff. That's probably one reason Craig and I work well together.
Okay.
He likes to manage, big time manage, but if he can give me like one big job that's a lot of task-oriented stuff, it's like I'm the person to do that. I like all that stuff. So that's what I like about doing the research. But I got into it, and I wanted to keep my family life stable. So I didn't want to, like, I was more interested in exercise physiology than in plant pathology. But on top of that, I was more interested in just kind of keeping things comfortable at home. And so I could go to grad school in the lab that I was already working in. And I had a coworker who had gotten her master's degree, and I admired her very much for her ability to just talk about things that she had done and defend her thesis and, you know, talk in front of people. And I didn't have that. I was pretty darn shy. So
You're doing fine.
I've gotten better at it.
Yeah,
I mean, and that was part of it as I just, I went through the process of getting my master's degree, learning a lot about something, being able to stand up and defend it in front of my peers and my superiors, and that was a really big accomplishment for me. It was more that I wanted the process, make myself get through that.
So what does your mother say about your records and
Oh, she's really proud. She's very proud. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't hold it. You know, she doesn't hold on to any of that stuff. She just has her upset moment about it, and she works on it and gets through it, and lets go of it. So.
Are they in Corvallis too?
So my parents are divorced.
Oh.
My mom lives in Corvallis. My dad lives in Portland.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happened?
Something that should have happened when they were, way before they got divorced. I mean, they were not a happy couple. They didn't really fight. They didn't really talk.
The differences between them?
My dad was real submissive,
Oh.
and she was just really in charge of everything. And she wasn't particularly kind. She wasn't mean, but she wasn't warm. And I think my dad just got beat down more and more. And it was interesting. I had my daughter, and
Just Ruby is the only?
Ruby, yeah.
Okay.
And my dad had decided he wanted a divorce. So they were still married when I had my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was so nervous about what that impact would have on me that he didn't want to tell me until after I had her, because he's kind of a squeamish guy. He was sure I would like have a miscarriage or something. I'd be so upset. And so he told us after I had her, and all I could think was, you don't know how long I've been waiting for you to do this. You know, you guys shouldn't be married. You're miserable together. You know, they really were. So I'm an advocate for people doing whatever they need to do to make themselves happy, because we only get one shot.
It's part of that quote.
Oh.
When you think about it. If you remember back that far.
I don't know, I'm getting kind of old.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything that you want to tell your fans these last couple minutes?
That was funny. I put this shirt on and I thought, that's kind of girly or something. It's got a heart on it. And I'm like, but I feel like I'm just guided by love. You know, I like love. And I love to run. And, you know, there's so many things in the world to love that I just kind of like to shine my light on all those great things and, you know, not worry about things that make me unhappy or aren't going right. Or
You have a great running attitude.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a privilege, right? I mean, we could use that energy to do things, you know, like walk to the store 10 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's so easy just to take that for granted. So I think it's a huge privilege to be able to use our physical energy to go for a run when, I mean, because life's pretty easy for us here.
Well, runners are so supportive of each other.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh,
They
that
seem to be,
community
you
is
know, it's
huge.
very,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it really is a nice place to be.
It
You
is.
know, yeah.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. So,
So Craig's a good friend.
very good friend. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So who's faster?
Oh, I am right now. Because he's got a broken leg.
Well, we know that. But
So, you know, he hasn't really beat me in any races that are longer than a 50K in the last couple years.
really?
He can still beat me in the 5K, and we haven't really raced a 10K. But 5Ks we'll race sometimes, and he usually beats me by about 30 seconds. We go to the track, and my workouts, I'm a good racer. I'm not as fast doing workouts as one might think, because I put a number on and I get all racy.
Like your mom.
Yeah. But we, when we're on the track, it's pretty great because he doesn't have much agenda these days, and I have a coach who gives me workouts, and so he'll say, what's your workout? And I'll tell him what it is, and he'll, what pace do you want to do? And I'll tell him, and he'll run them with me.
Okay.
And he knows me well enough now that he can hear me if he's in front of me, he hears my breathing,
Right.
and he'll know when it's time to like bring it back down, or if I'm falling off, he'll yell at me. Or so he's been really good that
Okay,
way.
we want to thank you for coming on today. And next week is the 4th of July, so we're not going to have a show next week. And because next week will go into July, it'll be the month of horses.
Oh,
This was the month of Western states, so Tevis Cup will be next month's people, guests.
Yes.
We won't bring the horse.
Won't bring a horse?
Paula won't allow us to bring the
You won't?
horse.
I can bring my horse.
That would be cool.
Right here.
That would be great. So thank you for watching, and look for us in 2 weeks. Super.